chat box. All right, so I am calling the meeting to order. We don't have a flag to salute, so I am going to bypass that for now. And I'm going to bypass introductions because I think we all know each other and there is nobody new here, with the exception of George coming to his first board meeting. So George, welcome to the COG as the new representative from all of us to you. And congratulations on your not so quite re-election, but election officially to a district. Okay, Jackie, has the agenda been posted?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
I'd like to add item 9D, which is an urgency item having to do with a Metro budget request amendment for the Redondo Beach Park and Ride facility cost increase.
Okay. Is there a motion to change the agenda and add the item that Jackie has mentioned?
Move.
Thank you. Just remember to unmute yourself.
Second, this is Drew.
Okay, and a second from Drew. Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed?
Yes.
All right, I don't hear any opposition, so that means that passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, comments from the public. Do we have any public comments or anybody who sent anything in?
We do not comments as of 5 p.m. today.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, then we will move on to consent calendar. We're going to vote on items A through I in one motion. Does anybody want to pull an item and or comment on any items before we vote on the consent calendar?
Before we do this,
Yes, sir.
is Ralph Franklin here? Because if he's not, I'm the alternate. If he's here, then I won't say anything.
Ralph Franklin is not here. You are the Inglewood representative today.
That's a lot of pressure. I want you to understand that.
I out of all the people in this Zoom, I'm pretty sure you can handle it.
But I want to know one thing. Why does Drew get to attend the meeting while he's at the beach?
Hey, I just want everyone to know that we actually have a beach here in El Segundo, because apparently that's not common knowledge. So now you know.
No,
Tower 60, right there behind me, Tower 60, baby.
It's out. It's out now.
Okay, so throwing shade at the mayor of Inglewood will get you nothing. And we'll make sure that a shipment of sand lands at City Hall in Inglewood soon enough. All right, so with that said, are there any other questions or comments? I see that there's a hand raised from somebody who is calling on the phone with the last four digits, 4252. If you could announce who you are.
No, I've been on the...
Okay. Then we will move on. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second, Brett.
Okay, a motion from John Krishank and seconded from Brett. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? All right, thank you. All right, we are done with consent. And the mayor now looks like Councilmember Franklin. It's amazing how they do that. Okay, presentations. Jackie, do you want to start? Or
Well, I've been holding meetings, I've been participating in meetings with your city managers, which are now weekly. And we have meetings that were actually, no, this is not time for the presentation. Take the presentation off. And we're having meetings with a lot of your directors because they just want to share ideas of what's going on. What are you finding as council members? The purpose of this item is, what are you finding as council members as positive and negative experiences? How are you handling public comment that you would normally get at the desk? And any lessons learned. And I thought maybe we have about 15 minutes to go around the council table and have you just give your impressions of what this new situation has been like for you.
Okay, So what Jackie is looking for is any feedback from each of you related to your cities and the current crisis right now and what's going on and how you're dealing with it, and if you have any best practices that you might want to share with everybody. So I'm just going to call on individuals in the order that I see you here on my screen. So I'll start with Olivia, because you are up on my top row. Olivia, you want to unmute yourself? I'm trying to, but it's not working. There you go.
So the city of Hawthorne implemented several changes with the use of personnel, technology, and equipment to help protect and better serve the community while protecting our employees. The police department has implemented several changes, including a team policing model, which presents overlapping shifts of personnel, limiting their risk of exposure while providing more police patrol officers on the street from specialized units. Also, Public Works Yard rescheduled employees to restrict the yard to no more than 8 employees in the yard at any time to observe social distancing. We use personal protective equipment, daily temperature checks, COVID-19 testing, travel reporting, and possible exposure reporting to help reduce the risk of exposure. We have a modified work schedule where we use telecommuting or a combination of both for City Hall employees. There's a mandatory use of masks during all contacts with the public and the use of gloves and eye protection during all physical contacts with the public to reduce the likelihood of exposure between the public and building inspectors, public works inspectors, police officers, and code enforcement officers. We disinfect work areas for PPE and hand sanitizing stations. Hand sanitizing stations have been set up in the police department, City Hall, and Memorial Center, and City Yard facilities. Employees are conducting daily security checks of schools and businesses, as well as community relations checks at shopping areas and businesses throughout the city. The Police Community Affairs Bureau is working in conjunction with the Parks and Recreation Department and Hawthorne School District, providing remote outreach to seniors, school students, and juveniles who were part of the department's programs. We have several food programs. We have a youth grab and go program this put on by the City of Hawthorne Recreation and Community Services Department. We have where breakfast and lunch is served for all children 18 and under. We have a senior snack program, and we have a senior grocery pickup program. That's really, unfortunately, it hasn't been working too well, but I'm particularly proud of the senior grocery pickup program because in that one, if you order your food from Targets or Ralph's, someone will. We have volunteers who will go and pick up the food. The seniors have to pay for their food online, and then volunteers will go and pick up the food and take it to their residence. Unfortunately, that program has not worked very well. We're trying to figure out how to do it better. Part of the problem is that many of our seniors are not online, and so they can't utilize online options. So that's a problem for us. But our snack programs work very well. We have as I said, we have a youth program, senior snack. We have a youth snack program and a senior snack program, and those are working very well. So those are some of the changes that we've seen. Our revenue is down significantly. We are the reimbursement that we're getting back is for protective equipment and for changing the way we operate using telecommunications, but it's not replacing the revenue we've lost. We have lost so much revenue because our hotel attendance is down significantly, and obviously our restaurant revenues are down. So we're really hurting here. So just to let you know. Great. That's my report.
Thank you, Olivia. Hildy?
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving us the chance to do this. In Manhattan Beach, we are just seeing an amazing participation from our city staff. They've been very adaptive and responsive, both to the needs of the community and to keeping our city running incredibly smoothly. Most are working from home with a very small skeletal staff that has to still come into the office. Most of that is enforcement and obviously our public safety. They've found very creative ways to reach out to our community. There was an early adaptation towards reaching out to our seniors, and that seems to be a very successful and very helpful approach to our seniors. We have a lot of efforts, both with the community partnerships and with our city, in making sure that our senior population is staying safe and is getting the services that they need. We have found that increasing our communication tools has been an important part of connecting with our community, and it seems to be appreciated, and we are doing that in many ways that we did not do previously, both through the press releases and signage and constantly trying to keep up our communications with our community. We as a city council meet 3 times a week, so we are trying to stay on top of the needs as they come up, which, as we all know, come up pretty constantly. And those agendas are pretty much 100% dedicated to the COVID crisis. And our mayors meet regionally with with the other cities and with the county to discuss the changing ways that we need to be adapting. We have a great effort to support our local businesses, both in partnership with our Chamber of Commerce and through the city. And that's an important piece for us in our community, is trying to support all of the local, certainly the small businesses, but all of our local businesses. We are challenged by the impact that the mandates and trying to find compliance with the mandates is affecting our public safety. And so, we're trying to find that balance of how does our public safety, how does our police department and our enforcement find the balance in doing their important work while still helping to help with enforcement of the mandates. So that's a challenge that we have to face often. So, Manhattan Beach has come together as a community and has really been remarkable in the way we are all trying to keep each other safe. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Rodney. Just unmute yourself, Rodney, because for some reason I'm unable to do it now. So.
Oh, okay, I got you. So anyway, the city, we're doing pretty well. Our police department, we're running 12-hour shifts at minimal manpower. Our human sources is still open, and our public works is still open. So we're doing a pretty good job for our community. We are also hurting with our revenues. It's amazing. We're trying to help local business. A lot of our restaurants are online right now. So if they're open to do curbside or a takeout, they posted. We opened up our EOC. They're at a low level right now, but they're operational and they're handling a lot of the calls for us. We did enact a pretty strict mask rule. And we're probably going to ease off maybe next week, but masks in Gardena are required even while driving. And once you walk out your door and until you come back. So we're trying to make sure that stay in place, shelter, social distancing. We're trying to make sure that we're taking care of our people. Our cases are limited as far as how many people have been affected. So we're trying to keep that number down. But, each city right now in the South Bay is kind of helping each other. So that's a good thing. And we'll continue to do that until mid-May. That's my end. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, Britt.
our city hall is closed, but our staff is working from home, and so public is able to get phone calls answered and returned, and construction permits and other needs are being met. And we've been working collaboratively with our PB chamber and some of the banks in town to encourage and assist our small businesses in applying for the PPP SBA loans, and also the county WIDAC grants. And we do daily updates on our website and through social media on the virus status and anything related to our city. We are we did a virtual Earth Day celebration this week, and we formed a task force to provide assistance to seniors with the 4 cities, 4 cities on the Hill participating in that, and we put together a resource guide which is available on our website. I think most of you have seen this really great grid here in the minutes for the South Bay and what each city is doing in the South Bay for seniors. That's a great helpful list to have also. So basically our trails, our equestrian trails are open, and our parks are open for walking through, but no groups or activities of that sort. And basically everybody seems to be working real hard to make it happen. Thank you.
Pat and George, I'm going to let you guys flip as to who wants to give the, George, do you want to, as the new rep, give the update from Torrance, or?
Well, since the mayor is online, I just want to see if he want to give the city's report. If not, I will jump in. Mayor?
Yeah, I think I'll just do it, and then George, you can pick up what I missed out on, because there's so much happening. Like all of you, we've been hit terribly in our finances, sales tax, utility users tax, DOT, business licenses, just about everything possible. Our next meeting is to look at how bad the cuts are going to have to be in the next 2 years. So the May 5th meeting is going to be a bloodletting at the very best. We're still operating as a city. We've done I think we did our 5th virtual meeting on Tuesday night, doing with Zoom, and it works. It's not the most comfortable way, as you all know, to do a city council meeting, but we're getting used to it. We have to do that. We did something unique at the beginning. We actually did a survey in our community on what was the concerns of the citizens. And the biggest one was anxiety, which is not unusual in these situations, but also wanted to address that as best we can. And then the other one was supplies. People are doing a lot of hoarding, and as we know now, there's still shortages of paper goods and sometimes water, even though the water that we're selling is really good water. But to care for some of those, we put into a program we call Torrance Cares to Go. That's actually the bargaining units of our employees put in the seed money, and we prepare care packages for our seniors and disabled and those who are threatened health-wise. And so thus far, I think we've delivered a little bit more than 1,400 packages. They're delivered in a city car by a city employee with a city uniform on, so there's security to the people we're bringing them to, and social distancing all the time, and make sure that's good. It received some really good press on, I think NBC covered us nationally, and some of the local channels as well. Like you guys, we've closed a lot of my colleague mayors, and I got together with our supervisor before we did it, but we closed the beaches. We actually had to close Madrona Marsh because there was no room in there for social distancing. and like you, non-essential businesses. All of our parks are still open, but there are no play equipment available to anybody, and we want people social distance while they're doing that. We worked with the farmers market. We had to close that for the first Saturday and Tuesday. We worked with the public health department and presented them with a plan, and we were allowed to go back up. So we've been running that. Very good social distancing, also cleanliness and sinks and hand cleaner and all the other stuff. So that's working really good. We're doing some virtual recreation through our Parks and Rec department. Torrance Transit is operational, although it's a modified schedule with very super clean buses. Half of the bus drivers are delivering food for Torrance Cares. Some of them are cleaning the buses, and the others are operating them to make sure people can get to work, whether in the healthcare industry or the other essential businesses that we need so very much. We modified our crosswalks to take away the buttons, so they're no touch now, so people don't have to touch a button to get across the street. And the Torrance Cares connection, we put that together. There was so much happiness and gratitude for the care packages that a number of the nonprofits that wanted to get into it as well. So we invited them in as well. Just recently, we started Torrance Cares for Seniors, and that's a free COVID-19 testing. Our department came up with that. So those who are seniors, and we actually send our paramedics over to administer the test in their homes so that they can feel fresh and safe and getting it done. So, we're using virtual for all our plan checks, and even inspections now are done virtual by FaceTime or I think we even use it out there to make sure the building is still on. We're hopeful to be opening up our counter pretty soon. Right now, everything is police cars. We have more police cars on the street because they're all 1 million cars now. They're practicing their social distance. Everybody again is using their PPE. Fire department is using what they call one in, all out. So if they get a call, one person goes in fully dressed in PPE, but makes the determination of what the situation is. If the rest have to go in, then they all go in covered with PPE, and then they bring them all out. Speaking of PPE, I had a conversation this morning with, actually this afternoon, with hospitals. We're meeting on a regular basis with them. We met with them early on, and they had some difficulties getting PPE ventilators. We made a number of telephone calls and connections with supervisors as well as with our state representatives. Fully equipped, ramped up all the way. They had up to 500 beds in both hospitals. Fortunately, knocking on wood, they didn't have to use them all. Ironically, they had to lay off some personnel because they were not doing the non-essential surgeries and medical care. But we talked to them today. They're ready to start their ramp up. They're going into their business plan, coming up with their phases of how they will bring it back up. But at the same time, be ready to, if there's a surge, to go back to the way they did. So, they've only got up to about 50% occupancy of the 500 beds, so that's a good thing. And there's not as many COVID-19 housed in our hospital. That's another good thing. Our COVID numbers are, I believe it was 226 today or something like that. It's been steadily increasing, but it's been slowing down for a few days. And it's to be expected because we are the largest populated city. We're still maintaining. I look forward to what our budgeting will be this coming budget go round. And George, did I miss anything?
No, Mayor, pretty much everything. There may be a couple of things I may add that other folks are somewhat aware. We're actually fighting two wars. The first one on March 1 was we had a cyber attack. So the city had to go, emergency on that, and we're still in the recovery of that. There may be some news blip you'll see on Daily Breeze today. So far, we're coming back up. So the city staff is it's like a two-front war, if you will. And so I think they really stepped up real good. I think the Emergency Operations Center has been operating real good. As a matter of fact, we had a meeting in February, right before the pandemic blew out, and sharing with the folks, because I was a committee chair. I said my two things concern was cyber attack and a emergency such as a COVID, and looks like our emergency team was really ready. I think what Mayor said about our farmers market, I think it's probably a good strength we have with how our city operates. In this pandemic, we were still one of the, I may have to agree, we may have one of the model outdoor farmers market. As we start looking forward to opening up the city in accordance with the LA County Public Health directives and guidance, we have people who know how to operate public and environment safely. And so that's probably the big focus, is how do we smartly allow businesses to open up in a very safe manner, because most of the business in South Bay around here is in Torrance, and we want to make sure we do it right and not have a big hiccup. But the farmers market, as an example, we have an idea of how to manage these things. I think the disruption to the council meeting is more manageable now. I don't know if the mayor agree at the end. So you say that's a big plus, but we still allow them to call in and share what they have. I would say the addressing the budget and the revenue due to COVID-19 is probably the big thing that we will have to carefully attack in a very prudent manner. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Okay, I'm going to move on to B, but let's.
I have a question. Christian, I have a question. It's Olivia.
Go ahead.
Olivia, a question.
Go ahead.
I wanted to address my question to both Mayor Fury and also to Britt about the parks. How do you manage parks? Are you requiring people wear masks? Or how much congregating do you allow? And are you strictly enforcing anything in the park?
I can go first because I unmuted quicker. We have park rangers.
Pat, your sound is fading out. Can you speak closer?
How's that? Any better? Yeah, we have park ambassadors. We have park rangers that work for the Parks and Rec department. We also have our park ambassadors who are there on a daily basis. Because we have two large parks that we're gathering more RVs from outside the community, we put up 2-hour parking. So you can only park there for 2 hours per day. And that's kind of cleaned up that situation. But our paths are wide enough, our fields are wide enough to embrace a couple, maybe a family with children, to walk without getting into the public space, the private spaces of others. So it's been working real well. We've never had to close it up. We encourage people to wear masks. It's not mandatory as of yet. But we're still monitoring that situation. If we get too many complaints, then that would be it. But we're not, I tease Richard Montgomery because apparently they're the enforcement capital of the South Bay. We're not citing people. We're threatening them and letting them know that forcefully that they can't be, whether it's a non-essential business or it's somebody who's violating rules that we put in because of the pandemic. But we've not really seen a real enforcement problem. Our community has been really, and I'm sure all of yours have, 90, 95% of everybody understands the problem solution by social distancing. Hey, George.
Oh, thanks, Pat. I'm going to move on now. And folks, I get it's taking a little bit longer than we probably, Jackie, had anticipated. So B, I'm going to go with you and try to keep it to 3 minutes or less if possible.
I'm going to be even shorter than that. Basically, we don't have any commercial, so we're not dealing with anything from commercial enterprises. We have a small staff. The city hall's been closed, but they're open for appointments, and they do most everything through email and telephone. We put out a box so people can put in building and other projects that are being worked on, so that they can put them in the box and the staff can get them later to limit any contact with people. And it's working fine. We're doing Zoom meetings, and there have been no hiccups. So that's my presentation.
Drew. I'm trying to unmute you, but it's not working. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, are you talking to me, Christian?
You want me to skip you? No, I was talking
All right, I'm good. I had a mouse problem.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I'll be quick as well. Hopefully,
it's because of the sand, Drew.
Sand got in my
the sand, dude.
Well, for us, it's hard to believe. March 11th, we did our State of the City, which was 2 days before everything hit the fan. So we had over 500 tickets sold. 2 hours before that event, my city attorney and city manager were saying we need to call this event. And the guidance was not allow gatherings. 1 day later, it was no more than 250 people, no greater than 250 people. Jennifer was there. She had a large container of sanitizer right by her at all times. You remember that, Jennifer? We had these huge tubs of sanitizer gel from Chevron. So it's weird to think that that's happened. Since then, we've got 24 cases, which doesn't sound bad. But we're actually now, we were tracking our density pretty closely in terms of how many per 100,000. We're watching our neighboring cities. Now we're up near Manhattan Beach numbers. And as we all know, it doesn't track recovered cases. So it's all cumulative cases. But for us, it's become more alarming as of late. We have a senior housing facility in El Segundo called Park Vista. So one of our priorities has been, there are about 100 residents there, including my mother. And one of our priorities has been to protect the residents. So the fire department has been working really closely with them. Knock on wood, we have no cases there as far as we're aware of. We stood up an all hazards incident management team on March 16th. And they've been working every day, doing a great job. We flew in some PIO help, but we have a full-blown EOC, and we've had for the last 2 years an emergency services director. So they're helping out. And I'll just wrap it up by saying lots of communication, like Hildy said. I'm like Pat. Pat, I've never worn a suit more consecutive days in my life. Even when I was a consultant, I'm on day like 40 or something, because I'm going in and doing these video updates every morning. They're usually like 2 minutes at 11 a.m. and I'm getting good response from folks on that. For us, because we have about 70,000 people typically coming into our city every day, because we are, George, I hate to break it to you, we're really the epicenter of commerce in the South Bay. But no, in all seriousness, with all our Fortune 100 companies, all the technology companies, et cetera, more than 98% of our city's revenue comes from commercial activity, directly or indirectly. We get a very small share of the property tax. So for us, we're very concerned about the TOT, the sales tax, the UUT, and then next year, the business license tax component of our revenue pie. And so far, we have not, I don't want to get into confidential area, but we haven't made substantial personnel changes outside of more aggressive vacancies than we would normally have. And then evaluating all services across the board. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Cedric.
What are you doing?
There you go.
Okay, I'm not muted. Hello, everybody. Well, the city of Carson, we were first tagged as a hoax of having coronavirus. Now, I think we have the largest number of known cases in the South Bay area. We're close to 200, if not over 200 as of today. In the beginning, we closed all of our parks, our community center. We've canceled all of our special events up until August. So when we did that, we knew we had to do refunds. So we started a refund process, giving people back their money. We opened up a call center for our residents, and to date, we've had over 4,000 calls to that center, incoming and outgoing. We started our grab-and-go food distribution at our east end of the community center. We've actually given out 9,980 meals, and we started a new program with Norms to do a reduced cost in food for individuals who may not be able to afford a decent meal. So we do have food processed through our Norms. We suspended our bus service, as I talked about, I think, at our last meeting, and we've included a program that we've now have Lyft, Uber, Access, Dollar Ride, and taxi service all being subsidized to assist our residents in the city. One thing that we did last night, last Tuesday's council meeting, we earmarked $500,000 for our small business to allow them a small loan. We were in debate whether it's going to be a grant, but we agreed on a loan. And in addition to $75,000 that we earmarked for a consultant to assist individuals in trying to get the application through the federal government. We have our council meetings on Zoom. We do weekly Zoom meetings just on coronavirus update weekly to address the issue of coronavirus disaster council that meet weekly, and they give us updates as well. And the last part I know that we were really working towards is our 10,000 masks that we finally received them Wednesday. They're being distributed as of today. They'll be at the community center, city hall, and other areas, and we are mandated to our residents to wear them in addition to having our areas that are still access to the public, the restaurants, I mean, not restaurants, but supermarkets, other areas in the city that are open. And if they don't have masks, we're actually distributing them so that they can actually be handed out to those individuals when you come into those stores. And finally, we are also we're concerned about our sales tax revenue, or TOT, sales tax, property tax, UUT. We're in the middle of our budget like everybody else, and knowing that it's going to be a hit, and that we just need to look at how we're going to actually put our city back together again once this is over.
Is that it?
That's it. That's all. That's it in a nutshell.
Cedric's got the best background. Cedric wins for background award.
I'm in the cigar room. The Butts know about the cigar room.
All right, Mayor Butts.
Okay, so, oops, hold on a minute. So we started, like Drew talked about, every day, I guess every other day, with video updates. We post them on our website, post them on Facebook. We had a food giveaway at the forum. As most of you probably know, air traffic is down at LAX about 94%. And so they laid just hundreds of people off that were, lower income residents. And we have about 4,800 Inglewood residents that work at the airport. And so we gave away about 7,000 boxes of food at the forum a week ago. Now, an interesting comment was made about Carson having, I think, 200 cases. We were doing really good in terms of cases until we opened up a testing site at the forum. And so we went in a week from 100 cases to about 240 cases. And so the advice I would give everybody is this is going to end up, I believe, nationwide. It's going to be discovered there are so many people that are asymptomatic and that have the antibody that shows that they had COVID, but because they had no symptoms, they weren't tested. And so right now, because the people that are coming in to be tested are those primarily that have symptoms of some type, you're having a high ratio of mortality to the people that are diagnosed. But I think that you're going to find that there are so many people that have it and never had any symptoms. We just got a $95 million grant from the TIRCP grant process from the state, which was 10% of the allocation of the $500 million allocation. And we're really proud of that because of all the 17 awardees, we were the only one that didn't have a transit system at all. And they gave it to us based upon our concept of a people mover. And we're really proud of that. That, with the money that you guys have authorized from Measure R, is going to make this from a vision and a dream into a reality, because we're about $330 million there. And we're going back next year for another 100 million. So we have enough to get started. We had 2 cases at the stadium. The governor took us and Dodger Stadium and projects like that off the moratorium list. And so that is going on, and they've taken great measures to prevent any other cases, and they haven't had any other cases but the 2. The stadium will open probably in September. It was scheduled to open July 25th, but because Taylor Swift has to put up probably $11 million in pre-production costs before the event can be held, she's pulled out of all of her concerts for 2020 and will reschedule them for 2021. Right now, we're still on point to have WrestleMania in March of 2021. And but everybody's nervous to see how long this is actually going to go on. We're very fortunate. We had about $57 million in reserves, and while this has really impacted our revenues, we're not going to lay anybody off or have any furloughs. See what else. We didn't close City Hall. We let all the City Hall employees, except for the water treatment plant people, the police, dispatchers, myself, stay at home. We have payroll people come in twice a week to do payroll, and everybody that has a function that can only be done here because of security concerns, computer architecture wise, basically no one else is here. And we're letting everybody stay off till May 15th. Originally, they were supposed to come back this next Monday, but now they'll be back on May 15th. And I think that's it. We're one thing that's really good is that we've all learned how to do virtual meetings. We had our first Metro meeting today, and our first main meeting today, and the South Bay COG item came up. And it passed, I think it was 7-2. And so, life is good for the South Bay.
Thank you. All right, Kenny.
Okay, thanks, Christian. I think Palos Verdes Estates is, in general, doing fair to Midland, from what I can tell, as far as all the other cities are doing. Most of our employees are working remotely, telecommuting. Only essential staffers are actually there. Our biggest challenge is regulating all the open space that we have closed. And it's just been a real challenge. And I think we were, especially compared with the other peninsula cities, a little bit late in closing our bluff tops and our trails. And so, people feeling the need to get outdoors and do some type of recreational activity, it's like water. It has to flow somewhere. And then so I'm glad that we're meeting together, and I'm glad to see Supervisor Hans, Jennifer Lamarck here, because I know that Supervisor is mindful of a coordinated response as far as reopening. And I think we really need to think about that as a group here, because what happens, what one city does can easily affect another in terms of closures and reopening. So I hope that we can talk about that a little bit later, perhaps in the context of the annual work plan. As far as revenues go, this is probably the one and only time that I feel okay about not having any commercial revenues or not having much to speak of. I think perhaps what B said in terms of Rolling Hills not having any. Certainly within this group, we're probably the least productive revenue-wise as far as a commercial base. Our revenues are primarily property taxes and parcel tax. So, we're still trying to support, of course, our small businesses that are here, but in terms of the overall pie, it's just a small slice of it. But that's about it. I mean, of course, I'm concerned about how this entire economic meltdown, how that's going to affect PERS liabilities. And of course, nobody is getting out scot-free. I'm not meaning to suggest that by any measure. So, we're going to feel it certainly in one way or another.
Great.
That's all I got.
Thank you. All right, John.
Thank you, Christian. So yeah, we're all going to have a mess. We're all going to need to work as a team together and share good ideas. So thanks for the couple minutes to talk. So in Rancho Palos Verdes, we have a slightly different take than Rolling Hills and Palos Verdes estates. We're losing about $650,000 a month. Our major hotel, Terranea, has obviously been closed. They had to furlough 1,200 people. So just the amount of loss of jobs and revenues, we're getting hammered. But I'm not going to complain because all the rest of you are getting hammered too. So we get it. So in terms of virtual meetings, we've actually had 4 city council meetings completely virtual. We're allowing our residents to record either audio or video comments for agenda items. And that's actually a practice that we think will even continue after this whole thing, giving our residents an opportunity to speak on items without having to drive all the way down Hawthorne Boulevard to get to our council meetings. In terms of small business, what we basically did was we're returning all the business taxes that we collected from our small businesses for this year. We're also opening up our our community development block grants. And instead of using those for ADA improvements, we're actually going to allow our small businesses to utilize that money as to help them with their businesses. Our city's had 50 cases. You guys know I was one of them. I've been fully recovered for 1 month now, so I'm very thankful for that. I'm going to be working with our Palos Verdes Peninsula Chamber of Commerce to work on plans to help reopen businesses and the economy and do it safely. But basically, we want to see things get back to normal sooner rather than later. But we want to also work with all of our partners here in the South Bay COG to make sure it's done responsibly. So thank you for the time, Christian.
Thank you. Stacy.
All right. Thank you. A little update from Hermosa Beach. We're issuing daily updates to our residents on all the local, state, and federal updates each day. We've kept our parks and greenbelt and bathrooms open. We are embarking on a partnership with our local businesses to give feedback maybe on a plan once restrictions start to lift so they can have a voice in that. We have an incredible volunteer base of about 300 people. So we've actually received so few requests that we're starting to field requests for our neighboring cities. So all y'all on the calls know that there's a lot of people standing at the ready. We expect about a $2 million budget shortfall through June of this year, largely due to decrease in TOT and sales tax. Getting confirmation in the coming weeks on what it's going to look like through the next fiscal year. Our beach is closed, as everyone knows, and contrary to some people's belief, even though Hermosa owns our beach, the public health order applies to Hermosa and overrides any decision we would make on that. So I know that our mayors in the South Bay and city managers have been meeting to talk about potential for a plan once restrictions are lifted and it's deemed safe to slowly regain access onto the beach. So in talking with our city manager today, it sounds like there may be an opportunity for a partnership with Beach Cities Health District on devising that plan. And it sounds like we're going to be focusing on that for the next week or so to try to work on some collaborative effort for when the beach opens. And that's it.
Thank you. All right, Jennifer and Lacey, do you guys want a tag team from a county perspective or?
Hi, Christian, can you hear me? Hey, okay, sorry, some background noise. So next Tuesday's agenda, there's a lot of items that are important. It's a really long agenda. I just wanted to go through some of them quickly. They are going to be exploring providing housing for frontline healthcare workers in the county. And there's a motion that requires a comprehensive plan in 14 days to talk about how we can collaborate with the state to provide this housing so our frontline workers have a safe place to go away from their families. There's also another motion that directs our department heads to come back in 7 days with a detailed report about measures needed to contain the virus and also the prerequisites that will need to be in place to start relaxing the restrictions. Supervisor Hahn is putting forth a motion to prioritize testing at nursing homes and congregate living sites. I know Supervisor Ridley Thomas also has a motion about these sites as well, but hers focuses on testing. They're looking up a motion to form a resiliency task force to deal with the economic recovery moving forward. And also just wanted to mention that remind everybody there's a telebriefing for elected officials and city managers tomorrow at 3. And also the supervisor is doing a Janus Journal live event on Facebook again tomorrow at 11. She did it last week and it was very well received. There's a new food distribution program that's up and running and it'll be coming to the South Bay. It's a drive-through operation, so that will be coming. Gosh, there's so much more, but I think those are kind of the high points. Again, with the beaches, as folks have stated, the supervisor has asked the South Bay mayors to come up with a plan, a phased plan for reopening. She's been clear that, you know, it's not going to happen before May 15th when the health officer order is potentially lifted, although we know that it might, you know, be extended. But so they're not opening before May 15th. And as was mentioned, the Beach Cities Health District is also involved in our Department of Beaches and Harbors.
Thanks. Lacey?
Yeah, no, just a couple of brief updates. In the 2nd District, we've organized a food distribution that's happening in Exposition Park on a weekly basis for 1,300 families, partnering with, you know, a lot of diverse markets in South Los Angeles and kind of repurposing their efforts to make sure that there's still healthy food access. Supervisor Ridley Thomas has been really focused on making sure that there are protections for our constituents. So setting up a rental emergency assistance program, you know, issuing that amendment about rent freezes during the emergency order. And then also similarly very focused on supports for small businesses. So making sure that, you know, our small business has been running and that, you know, a lot of our applications have been at capacity, you know, a couple minutes after they've opened, and really just trying to repurpose the dollars that we have access to this at this time. But if we can be helpful in terms of, you know, sending out notices more efficiently or, you know, giving COG members heads up about programs that we're rolling out and things like that, please let us know, because we know information is changing very quickly and our programs are filling up very fast.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Kristen, can I add one thing?
Yes.
There's more business assistance coming next week, and I hear it's in the range of 12 million. So keep an eye out for that announcement as well.
Okay, perfect. I'll close it out here. Clearly, Redondo Beach is doing things many of you have already mentioned. I think we were the first South Bay city to do something on the 12th, followed quickly by the county and many of you. We have continued to update our orders as things rapidly changed and as information changed. Like most of you, going into this budgetary season, we were already kind of feeling the pain of the PERS issue. Our PERS has been going up about $2 million a year for the past 2 years, and that's going to continue in pretty high numbers for the next 9 years. Well, with a steady drop off. So we were already anticipating a way to go into creating a balanced budget with cuts. Now, kind of like what Stacy said, we're anticipating at this point probably a $2 million hit for the remainder of this fiscal year. And although projections are shifting on a daily basis for us, we're looking at like a 7 to 9 million hit in the upcoming fiscal year. So clearly, much like the rest of you, a lot of our focus over the next 5-6 weeks is going to be purely on budget, and then in June specifically on what to do. From the standpoint, I'll speak on a personal level. My wife is on the front lines at Little Company and Mary 2 days a week, so we're reading a lot of data here in the house aside from what county is putting out. And we're taking probably every precaution we need to. But I'll just, on a personal level, point out that much like Drew was saying, Drew's been really good putting out like a 2-minute update to residents. I think the best thing we can do as elected officials, and you see clearly Janice now doing it with Janice's Journal, whatnot, is getting information. I don't know about you in your cities, but we have a lot of people that are just getting restless. I think in this day and age, people have an expectation for information to just be spoon-fed to them. So kudos to El Segundo and Manhattan. I see you guys putting out South Bay alerts every day, even if it's just changes in numbers. I see people, at least on Nextdoor, showing a deep appreciation for that. I'm trying to, as an elected, do that on my own, updating on social media as much as possible. And then I've been live streaming community meetings since November, where I bring it out in public. Now I'm live streaming the virtual meetings for the public. I do agree with some of the comments made that being a collective unit is going to be important, clearly, especially from the Beach City's perspective. Stacy did mention the Beach City Health District is kind of rolling out a plan for recovery. And although the Beach City Health District only serves Redondo, Manhattan, and Hermosa, they are going to be, I know, at least working with El Segundo and Torrance as well on this. So I think as best as we can all share data or innovative ideas with each other in the coming months, for all of us, not only to all recover properly, but I think also moving in nation with what we do and how we do it will make it easier for one city to explain why they're doing it if we're all in lockstep with each other. With that said, I'll just mention 2 quick things that our police department is doing. They totally restructured how the PD works during this time. And I don't know about you guys, but our police and fire, our calls for service are way down. My wife would be the first. Hospital visits are way down too. There's less car accidents, there's less heart attacks, there's less strokes, there's less people getting injured on a sports field. So their census is down in the ER, which means they can absorb a high propensity of COVID patients when and if they come. They are clearly dealing with mostly that right now. Our PD, though, has changed. And what they do is they have a team, and that team only interacts with each other. They do not interact with anybody else in the rest of the police department, except for virtually. So there's only one team that is on the premise or out in the field at a given time, and they're doing their best to kind of isolate from each other to ensure that they're going to be able to provide services on a go-forward basis. I think the fire department is doing something a little bit similar as well. And somebody spoke about PPEs. I think it was Olivia and one other person earlier. Our chief was instrumental on early on getting as much equipment for his teams as possible. I don't know how he sourced it, but he did. And they also were able to source early on about 100 tests that could be officially used by fire department and police department personnel since they're out there on the front lines. And with that said, I'll close this out. Thank you everyone for sharing your perspectives. Again, if there's things that you think are really good or innovative or helpful that everybody, maybe just send Jackie a list of some things that you're doing, and then maybe the COG staff can kind of cultivate that and share it out to the rest of us.
Hey, Christian.
Mr. Chair, Jim Gaisley's on the phone. I don't know if you wanted to call on him.
Oh, I didn't see him, but Jim, go ahead with your comment, and then I'll go to Jim.
Okay, real quick. How many of you enacted eviction moratoriums for both commercial and rental properties?
We did that. It was one of our first steps in Redondo.
Okay, we did. What's that?
Carson has done as one.
Commercial as well?
Commercial as well.
Okay.
Hermosa too.
Okay.
Manhattan as well.
Okay.
Okay,
We
I
have
just
not
wanted to
done
see.
anything else to go. No, we're just deferring to the county order.
All right, Jim Gaisley. Thanks for joining us. Sorry I didn't see your name down there.
24 of them went for touchdowns.
Jim?
In other words, 25% of the time when he caught the ball.
All right, I don't think Jim can hear.
He's watching the news.
Yeah. All right. So we'll move on to the next item, and then if Jim does have something to share, we can try to squeeze that in a little bit later. All right. So Jackie, the 2021 work program.
Okay, as we get the work program up, and I'm going to try and make this as fast as possible, I wanted to just mention that I am doing what you just said for all the city managers. They meet once a week, and they send me all the information they want to share with each other, and then I send it out. And Christian mentioned the Beach Cities Health District, and it turns out that I already sent the Beach Cities Health District Recovery Plan to all of the city managers in the South Bay, because I thought that even though they might not be in the Beach Cities area, they might find it helpful to have that. So, so now we can go. The reason we do the work plan, in April, is that this is the way the budget gets based on the ideas in the work plan. And so I want to very briefly go through it with you. And we do ask you to approve it. And if you don't want to approve it tonight, because we're going to go fast, then maybe we can put it over. But let me go through it really fast. The next slide, please. We have mission and vision. And the one suggestion that our staff has is that you add the word resilient to the vision. So we would be environmentally sustainable, and which is obviously coming from our recent experience. Let's go on to guiding principles. Next slide. Okay, and this is the cooperation, collaboration, advocacy, supporting each other, identifying challenges and opportunities like we just did, solutions, and representing the South Bay's interests. Let's go on to the next slide. We had a strategic plan consultant several years ago and came up with these 4 goals, which, as you probably know, are on every one of our staff reports. We align them to the goals. Let's move on to the next one. As you can see, I'm not doing this. Programs are designed to work through the goals, and it's pretty much what I just said, adding value to the members, protecting South Bay interests. Let's move on to the next one. We had 4 areas of success this year. Let's just put them all up really fast. We leveraged outside funding by 6 times. As you know, our dues is a fraction of what we can do because of the fact that we get so many grants. We secured funding for the regional broadband network, and we'll talk about that more in the next item. We completed our sub-regional plan and adaptation plans, and we're assisting cities with individual strategies for the adaptation plans, which might be more interesting right now. And this year, we delivered over $1.4 million to our cities in energy incentive funds. That's actual dollars that cities got from working through our program. Let's go on to the next. Next slide is the revenue. And as you can see, once again, dues at this point are 7% of the revenue of the budget that we collect. And grant revenues are 88%. Moving on. Advocacy. This is we have written several housing papers to talk about SB 50 and some of these other things. We have our grants working on slow speed. We were way ahead of the game on telework. electric vehicles. We're working with Metro on coordinating the transfer of funding between Measure R, and between transit and highways, and then rail lines and these other annual issues for us. Let's move on. And please ask me any questions. We're going pretty fast. These are our current programs, and we've broken them down into environmental, outreach, transportation, sustainability. We work on homelessness, and you'll hear more about that. Seniors and the South Bay Fiber Network. These we consider our major programs. Let's move on. And our transportation highlights this year were to get Measure R funds flexible, to provide Measure M funds for the Sentinel grade separation, and we'll hear more about that later, to establish a matching fund policy because we don't have enough money for all of our projects, and to complete a call for projects, which included, I think, 44 projects or over 40 projects where we tried to collect projects from cities and figure out how to fund them. Let's move on. And then the last one of our current program is doing what we do best, I called this, and that's exactly what we were just talking about, coordinating and collaborating, bringing city staff together. I've asked the planning directors, your park directors, would they like me to host a Zoom call so they can do what you just did, go around the Zoom and figure out what works and what doesn't, and they jumped. I got so many responses within 10 minutes. So we will be having those calls. We're putting people together. We get together with our utility partners. We're identifying needs and solutions on how to do telework, how to continue some of these practices that you'd like to continue. And we're trying to establish a foundation to help support our cities for what we're calling our future unknowns, which none of us really knows might come next. Let's go on. Okay, go on again. This is now looking into the future. Our program areas will be applications for our fiber network, working with R&M and micromobility in the local travel network, and then all of our South Bay environmental programs. Let's go on. Our South Bay Fiber program, we're signing contracts with all of the cities. We're completing the construction. All cities should go live that are participating in July. El Segundo will come first because they're already connected. We want to schedule a session of lunch and learn workshops where we're going to bring in experts to look at the applications that cities can develop on these lines. And we're going to be developing those applications and obviously working with Metro, who is now putting in, I think, 3 sites onto our network so they can work on transportation applications. And then there's a lot of funding that's been discussed for broadband. We do have funds, but there's other projects coming out of COVID and some of these federal bills and state bills. Let's move on. Once again, transportation. And when I say express lane revenue, it's something that we continually talk about. And when the time is right, we will go back and look at that again. By law, the express lane revenue is supposed to come to the south, to areas it's collected. Metro is now holding that money, and that money should be made available to South Bay projects. Maybe you can use some of it for the Sentinel grade separation, but that money is being held and we'd like to release it. The other things that have been on the other slides, telework and education. We consider the broad transportation trip not taken strategy. We consider it very important for mobility, and that's part of the transportation nexus for our whole fiber. Let's move on. Environmental programs. We're working with the city of Hawthorne and Torrance, cities of Hawthorne and Torrance on Business Assist. This is money that your cities get or have been getting from the state if it continues. And those cities have turned the money over to us because we are the ones that are implementing and walking the streets, getting your businesses to sign up for environmental programs that are helpful to them. Implementing climate action and adaptive plans, seeking more funding to help you because we've lost Edison funding, and then operating our center. Let's move on. Special programs. Grace is going to talk a lot more about homeless services and what's going on with the special COVID responses and the innovation funding. With senior services, we're trying to work on shared housing and age-friendly, and we'd love to talk to the senior group, which we're going to have a meeting in next month, about some of these programs that you're finding successful and not so successful in this COVID environment. Next slide. Special initiatives is this big unknown called COVID response. What are we going to need to do? How can we help cities? And one of the ways we can help cities is delivering and supporting the virtual tools that you can use to do trainings, meetings, addressing your constituents, whatever. We also need to redesign our website, and we're in our new office. Of course, nobody's working there right now, but we do have a new office. Let's go on. Grants are a possibility for future funding. We have applied for a Caltrans grant. We are waiting to hear. We've already heard about a possibility that someone would like to sublease an office from us where they wouldn't really use it all the time, but it would be there, but they might pay. So these are possibilities. Partnerships with SCAG, AQMD, and third-party providers who are doing energy efficiency, public and private firms, agencies, excuse me. Let's go on. Just keep moving the slide. Collaboration is the key. These are all the groups that we have as working groups. And you've got this, we sent this out to you, so hopefully if you want to spend more time on each specific slide. These are our partners. We have all the partners in water, practically every water partner around. Metro is a partner for shared mobility, and Southern California Gas and the sanitation districts. I think there's another part of this slide at the bottom, if you could put that up. Our additional funders, our General Assembly sponsors, our Golden State Water has given us money for our business programs, LA County Homeless Funding and Broadband, and then the Regional Energy Network is one of our funders. Let's move on. And these are all of our outside partners. We are working on, this is an alphabet soup of other agencies in the South Bay, in the region, and in the state. Let's move on. But we added cities must do their part. We need you to share what we're doing here with your staff and with your constituents as appropriate, so that when we come to them, they know what we're talking about and the importance of it to the region. We need them to work with us and follow through on commitments that have been signed and made, like such as in the fiber network, and support our grant applications. Thank you. Let's move on. And then I love to do this. We put testimonials in our presentation. This is from one of the city staff that thanks us for the benchmarking that we did and how much money and time we saved that city. The Change and Save program is a program through West Basin where we go into the community and we help them with getting new, I think it's washing machines. And it's in disadvantaged areas. And this community member is thanking us for saving the money and helping them complete the survey that they did. And then on our city adaptation plan, thank you for attending the presentation to the council. It was informative and we answered the questions thoroughly. These are emails we get from city staff. And I think we have one more testimonial slide. Cool. Shared mobility. We just had the most incredible event that was put together in like 2 weeks, where we had all of the transportation coordinators from this big businesses in the area, and we put together a mobility workshop with the AQMD and Metro, and we had, I think, almost 90 people at this event. And Metro is thanking us for such an incredible turnout that really stimulated a lot of enthusiasm. On our fiber network, one city IT director said that we're saving their city at least $1,500 a month, and they want to continue to expand it to their parks. San Gabriel Valley COG said it's a great model and it should be used by other COGs. And West Basin Municipal Water District is extremely excited. It's a great fit, and they find the value proposition is already paying back for them. So next slide. I think that we're at the end, pretty much. Yes. So the questions, I'll answer any questions. The action that we'd like out of you is to approve, modify, change the work program. And then, as I said, the budget is based on this work program. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay, great. If anybody has a questions, just raise your hand through the participants thing. And if not, just unmute yourself and I will.
Can you take it off the screen now? Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any questions. So with that said, is there a motion to approve with that one change, adding resiliency?
So moved. So moved.
Okay, move from Mayor Butts.
I think Ralph Franklin is on the line.
He is, but Mayor Butts is acting as.
Oh, no. If Rob Frank is on the line, he's the guy.
Right, he has to do it. So.
Right.
Ralph?
So moved.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
is there
you.
a second?
Royal second.
Okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Are there any in opposition? Any abstentions? All right. Seeing none, unanimously carries. All right. Moving on to item 8A, the South Bay Fiber Network.
Okay, the South Bay Fiber Network is doing very, very well. We're under construction. As I said, we're going to be done with getting cities live by July 1st, but we were $2.5 million short due to the fact that prevailing wage wasn't included in the original budget and there were higher costs. We went to Metro. We put this request in the Metro budget. We found out Metro might be not be doing a traditional budget. And so we went to our leader, or our leaders, first Mayor Butts and then Janice Hahn, and said, we need this money now, and we can't wait for Metro to decide when to do their budget. It was on today's agenda, and both Mayor Butts and Janice Hahn were incredible leaders for us. They carried the day. The vote actually was a 10-1-1-1 vote. There was one abstention, one absent, and one no. And it was actually, I thought that Mayor Butts and Janice Hahn would be the maker and the second of the motion, but it was actually made by John Fazana from San Gabriel Valley and seconded by Hilda Solis from the county. So we had really good support from all over the county. And I want to thank, before I let Steve or Christian speak, Christian also put in comments. But the last minute, it came off the consent calendar, and I went into a little bit of a flurry, and we emailed Mayor Fury, Jan Vogel from the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, Ted Saman, who's the chairman of the Infrastructure Working Group from Redondo Beach, and Prem Kumar from Manhattan Beach. And they sent comments in which were read to the Metro Board before the motion was voted on. And I want to thank them very much for being there when we sent out the SOS email. So it was it was a real team effort, but it was led by Mayor Butts and Supervisor Hahn.
And I just want to jump in real quick. I want to tell you that Supervisor Hahn was magnificent. She was tenacious and ferocious. Director Najarian, who I love dearly, you know, he went on and he did it seemed like a 10-minute little soliloquy about he wanted to do it and his people thought it was wrong and he had a change of heart and so on and so forth. And he's just a wonderful guy. But Janice went in there like a pit bull, and she allowed me to be erudite and measured, which I don't usually get to do. So I really loved her for that. She was great.
Yeah, as I texted her, I said she had a mic drop moment in her comment. Okay, Steve, did you want to lend any color or?
Steve?
No, in the interest of time, let's just claim victory and move on.
Great, thank you. So yes, I just want to second Jackie's comments. Thank you very much, Mayor Butts and Janice Hahn and everybody else. We have been facing outside lobbying efforts on this effort since day one, but I am glad and thankful that it did pass with overwhelming support today. So Jackie, you want to move on to the Magellan contract amendment, or?
Yes, I do want to say that the next thing we do need is to get our funding agreement amended so the money can start flowing. And the next item on the agenda has to do with Magellan, who are our advisors on this project. They have been invaluable. They, due to all of the little vagaries that we've had with the legal, the funding, the commitments that some cities have made and then changed a little bit, they have run out of money for the amount of time we gave them. So we are, the contract amendment I think is for $15,000 to add to their services through June 30th. And we ask for your approval.
Great. Is there any questions or comments related to the Magellan contract? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve that?
So
moved,
moved.
Ralph Franklin.
I'll
Okay,
second. I'll
and-
second Armato.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's Inglewood with the motion and Hermosa Beach with the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is that an opposition, Jennifer, or?
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's just fine. Okay, and then are there any abstentions? Okay, all right, so motion carries unanimously. All right, the next action item there is payment to Inglewood for the South Bay Fiber Network Advance to Metro.
Right, we usually do this at the steering committee, but we were paid back by Inglewood, by Metro, and I think we owe Inglewood about $700,000, and we want to pay them, so we're asking for the for the board to make this authorization in order for us to get the signatures to pay Inglewood back.
Okay, any questions or comments related to that? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, John Krushank with the motion and Cedric with the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right, moving on. COG policy recommendations on state housing policy.
Right.
Page 81 to 84 in your agendas, folks.
Right, and as you can see, the policy here, the policy recommendations have to do with codifying our neighborhood strategy as an alternative to the transportation oriented strategy. We don't know if the legislature, maybe Jeff can speak to this, but we don't know if the legislature will take up housing again, but if they do take up housing, it will probably be in relationship to a budget amendment, and there's a lot less, or budget follow-on, and there's a lot less scrutiny that those pieces of legislation get. So we've done this, this paper to send to our legislators, and we've sent to some of our local legislators and asked them to champion for us. We haven't heard anything back, but it talks about making our neighborhood-oriented strategy an official one in state policy, integrating the narrowly crafted housing policy with other housing initiatives, so it's not done in a silo, that we actually consider things like regional telework, and when you're talking about communities, then create a community, mandate building a higher percentage of affordable housing, and using land that's more affordable to do it on, delaying legislation that would override any local zoning or by right until we look at how the legislation that already does that is doing. For example, the accessory dwelling units. And then one of the things that none of you remember is that in the early 2000s, our COG got a grant from SCAG to do what we called our carrying capacity. And the carrying capacity was, what's the condition of our sewers? What's the condition of our solid waste? What can we really, our water supplies, what can we really afford to do as far as growth? So that you understand fire services, school services. From that study, Lawndale actually went out and found more land for parks because our study showed they didn't have enough parks in their city. We're saying make us a pilot to update that study, and don't just throw housing at a community, but make it more comprehensive where the carrying capacity of the community is also considered part of that. And then evaluate what the coronavirus has really meant as far as how housing should be in the future. Wally is here. He's the one that authored the paper. What we're asking for today is authorization to send it to Sacramento and ask them to strongly consider it. And I would be glad to answer questions, but Wally can also answer questions.
Okay. Any questions for Wally or Jackie related to the paper? Okay. All right. Jeff, did you want to add any color on that from a state perspective, or?
Yeah, we haven't heard too much on the housing legislation yet. The lead board did meet today, and both the Assembly Local Government and the Senate Local Government Committee chairs did join that meeting to talk about how they do want to try to make cities, to give cities options, not to put too many undue constraints on them right now, especially with regard to housing. However, I do still expect the governor is still focusing on homelessness and housing. So we haven't heard any specifics yet, but I still think it will be considered down the road sometime.
Okay, thanks. All right, not seeing any questions. Is there a motion to approve circulating this to state agencies and legislators?
Rob Franklin, so moved.
I have a question. Unfortunately, I was trying to get to unmute it, but I couldn't figure that out early enough. Why is there a recommendation? I mean, a lot of us, or some of us, at least in our city, think it's more appropriate for them to remove affordable housing in areas where there would be access to transit and for work, for jobs that are close by to where the affordable housing is. This paper is against that. And so just to simply find some vacant land doesn't seem to be something that, I don't know. I don't know what the strategy is or what the rationale is of that.
Sure, well, why don't we let Wally address that question?
Yeah, we're not against it. What we're against is having the state dictate that that's the only option. Our strategy, if you read it, has different options of going about how you get how you should develop housing. One of the big ones is, why don't you move it to affordable land? There's no affordable land in the coastal counties, so move it out to where it is affordable. But the objection to the transit part is only that you're only giving us that one option, and that doesn't make any sense. We don't have really strong option other than Inglewood, for example. We don't have strong. Now, the bottom line here is we're objecting to the state overriding local zoning controls, and that we should be, if you want something that deals with climate change, as well as the housing crisis, as well as the any kind of public health issue, you got to have local expertise doing it. That's the thrust of the paper.
Well, I'm just saying, I agree totally, and I think all of us are on board with wanting to make sure that we have local controls and that they don't override those local controls. But when you start putting in other missions that could have some unintended consequences, that's where I'm having a problem, because it doesn't stay with that. It goes far beyond that, and we don't know what they're going to do with that, because once you put that out there, then they start enforcing it in areas that you don't think they should have used. And I just don't think we should just be, I think we should be focused more on just saying, we want local control. We don't want you to override. Every city needs to review their unique circumstances and determine within certain parameters how we can do affordable housing, but we're not going to just make a one-size-fits-all for the cities.
Well, we spent about $4 million developing a South Bay sustainability strategy, and it gives different options, and all we're asking for them to do is to certify it. It doesn't require any city to do it. It doesn't take anything away from any city. You can do transit-oriented development if you want. What we're simply asking is to have some flexibility based on about 10 years of work and $4 million of investment in a sustainability strategy, which the board has adopted. So I'm not clear exactly what your concern is, but that's the thrust of what we're saying there.
I will say this, this COG has definitely been on the leading edge before even I was here in terms of coming up with strategies that are above and beyond the kind of status quo thinking, which is transit-oriented development. And so I think we're just trying to effectuate options as opposed to your words, right? Having a one-size-fits-all older mode of thinking, put down upon all of us, and we're trying to expand the conversation and find ways to give cities flexibility so that if and when the state does choose to use excessive force on us, that we actually can gain maximum flexibility. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, then I heard Councilmember Franklin make a motion. Is there a second to his motion?
Second, Olivia.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Are any opposed?
B, no.
Okay, Rolling Hills, no. Are there any abstentions?
Yes, I'll abstain, please.
Okay, abstention from Jennifer, and I'll just check in. Lacey, would you?
Yes, please.
Okay, so abstentions from both of the county representatives. Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving on to item C, homeless services. Jackie?
Okay, I want to, before we move on, I just have to say, and maybe Mayor Butts will smile at this, but I have to go back and just say that one of the thing that made me smile at the Metro meeting today had to do with the fact that they talked about our COG being so different and so ahead of the game and so visionary, and that they needed local control, and then we were saying this is what our region wanted, and we were expressing what's important to our region. And I thought we neglected to say that for our working together, and I think even what they thought of the cause, even though they thought we were a thorn in their side, I think they had to give us kudos for at least striking out on our own. So I just thought it was interesting. I will move on though, and the next.
I want to add to that, Jackie.
Yeah.
I want to add to that. The point was made by a mayor in Los Angeles that our COG didn't vote for Measure M, and it was ironic that we would want to do this. And I did make the point that this is a democracy and that we had every right to take the position we took. And we also to enjoy the fruits of this tax. And also that with the advent of the COVID virus crisis, it proved the wisdom of having alternative communication vehicles to expand on what we have, and the fact that the telecom companies that were so most opposed to this actually bid for it and didn't bid low enough. So it was a very instructive meeting. And so while I had some apprehension when it was pulled, I said, no, this is an opportunity to educate people, and we did.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I'm going to turn this over now to Grace to brief you on the programs, the latest programs that you're hearing about on homeless services. Grace?
Well, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone's face and figure out what everyone's eating. But I did want to give an update because you've probably all heard by now about Project Room Key. And it started about 6 weeks ago, and it is a program that's really came down from the state, and it's a state-county partnership, and then the county is now working furiously to try to come up with 15,000 motel rooms or hotel rooms across LA County. And they've been working very diligently trying to find these beds because they're really working on trying to get folks who are what they consider under the FEMA guidelines vulnerable. So it's either by age, 65 and older, or you have an underlying health condition, whether it's an immune condition or respiratory, whatever, that could be greatly impacted by COVID-19. And so their first grouping of people that are getting into the motels and hotels are those individuals who have been in shelters and cannot self-isolate. And so they're moving in, and then they're looking to work with all the outreach teams and getting those folks that are on the street that meet the same requirements into the motels. So right now in our area, in Spa 8, and I'm not including, well, South Bay part of Spa 8, we have 3 hotels that have come online. The first one was in Lomita, and that came online April 8th, and that one has 60 beds. And then we had another one in San Pedro that came online last week, and that one is 100 beds. And then today was the opening of the one in Lawndale, and that has 97 beds. And then it looks like there are a couple more that have been identified in the South Bay, and they're trying to negotiate the contracts between the hotel and the county. So and then all of the folks all of the hotels are connected with a homeless service provider. So for instance, in the CES lead and in our area, that's Harbor Interfaith, they're working and they're contracting with other service providers that if they can't provide the coverage, then they're going to get another service provider into this setting. They are the service provider for the Lomita site. I know PATH is the service provider for Lawndale, and I think it's Salvation Army is a service provider that's working at the Sunrise Hotel in San Pedro. So the biggest thing is they're trying to, this is a 3-month process, and it's 3 months from the date that the contract is executed. And there is funding that's available from FEMA for this program. And they're, they're just really trying to take that humanitarian approach and get these folks off the street, out of the shelters, so that they can really, not be, and these are all asymptomatic individuals that are being housed in the hotels and the motels. There have been some issues with there have been a couple cities that have tried to block this from happening. And according to Phil Ansell, I was on a call today, it was the homeless policy meeting this afternoon. And there was an emergency filing last week by the county with U.S. District Judge David Carter. And today was the court hearing. And the city of Lawndale was involved, and they actually attended the meeting. And so Phil felt pretty good that there were some good discussions between the county and Lawndale following the court hearing. And one thing to note is that when these hotels and motels open, they're really focused on folks in our spa and really looking at individuals that are basically in this hotel is opened. And today Phil reported that 9, so the Lawndale Hotel has 97 rooms where they're not having 97 people come in all at once because they have to keep the social distancing and everything else. So they're letting in a few at a time. And 9 of the residents that moved in today had been unsheltered on the streets of Lawndale. So they're really the county's really working with LAHSA to identify folks that are in the immediate area and get them into their, into the hotel that's in their community. Of course, I think cities probably have a big question as to what's going to happen after this 3 months is up. Where are these folks going to go? And so between LAHSA and the county, they're really working to try to identify locations, whether it's maybe recuperative care or looking at board and care facilities, depending on the health of the individual. I mean, they're working really hard because they do not want them back on the street. So that's, there's just a lot of stuff that's going on right now with that project. And then also too, the way that individuals are chosen, and it's not really prioritized, is the homeless service outreach work are the ones who, as part of the HMIS system, there's an assessment tool that they've added that really asks questions as to whether or not they're, looking at the age and their any underlying conditions. And then based on that, LAHSA prioritizes looking again at the spa, looking at the city that they're coming from, and then identifying what hotel would be probably the best situation for that individual. So does anyone have any questions on or comments on Project Room Key right now? And then also too, I noticed that Jennifer had posted up with the Janus Journal tomorrow. She's going to also be talking about Project Room Key.
Okay, I see a question from Ralph. Go ahead, Ralph.
Yes, I just want to also add that once the hotel or motel is functional, the question came up before about who's going to manage it and oversee it. And it's my understanding that it's going to be by the county fire department, and then also the social group that's going to be the provider, as well as LAHSA. Is that still correct, Grace?
Yes, that is correct. And then there's also going to be, if needed, the Department of Mental Health is going to have clinicians available, Department of Health Services, Department of Public Health. So all of the Department of Public Social Services all the events are going to be available to help folks get to that next step to get them ready to be housed once this whole crisis is over.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Grace?
And then I don't know if I hope you're all familiar with the COVID-19 update that comes out from the county, because there is they have their daily update. And if you click on that and scroll down, you can actually see the update for Project Room Key. And it identifies by spa area the numbers of hotels. It doesn't identify location, but identifies, like, for instance, South Bay 1, South Bay 2, South Bay 3, and then identifies the total number of rooms and the day that it became operational and the number of rooms occupied and number of clients. So if you want to kind of follow along to see what's happening, that's a really good find out what's happening in the South Bay as well as the other areas too.
Great. So, this is Jeff. I have been including the link to that in my daily updates. Go out to the mayors and council members.
Thanks. Any other questions for Grace? Okay, and Grace, if anybody does have questions or their local teams in their cities that are working on homelessness related to this or anything else, they can always reach out to you directly. Is that correct?
Oh yes, and I've been in pretty regular contact with a lot of our city staff. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. All right. Jackie, we don't need action on that, so you want to move to senior services?
Yeah, and I want to just caution everybody, we are running late, but we have four very important transportation items.
I know.
There is an attachment in the agenda on senior services and what's happening. We have a meeting coming up at the end of May, should be a Zoom meeting, and I don't know if Grace or Britt want to add anything to that. You have to unmute, Britt, if you want to talk.
As I mentioned before, I think this is just really an excellent spreadsheet. Did you put this together, Grace?
Yes, we reached out to all of our cities asking them to send us back information about what they were doing. Not all of our cities responded, so working on that to try to get as much information as we can to have that comprehensive spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be very helpful just in terms of cities partnering and trying to support people across a city line. So thanks for putting that together.
All right, and that spreadsheet is on page 85 of your board packet if you want to look at it. Okay, anything else related to senior services, or you have other? I don't know if there was something else you want. You're muted, Jackie. You're muted still.
We have one other item, which is an announcement that the work program that you did and the steering committee discussed that the budget will be prepared with the same dues as last year, and that is being communicated to cities when they ask, but after today, we'll communicate it to all cities since you're preparing your budgets, they want to know if we had decided to increase and we're not. I can move on to transportation items now. And Mayor Butts has been busy. The guy doesn't sleep, I don't think. And we have a new agreement that we have a letter of agreement that has been included in the supplemental package that you got this afternoon. And I'm going to turn it over, first of all, to, I don't know, Steve or Mayor Butts. Which one of you wants to go first to talk about this? Mayor, do you want to talk? And then Steve can fill in.
Well, in a nutshell, the letter memorializes agreements that were made as far as what Metro is going to do to make sure that the promises are kept to the COG on these projects. And I could do it in detail, but I'll turn it over to Steve. I haven't heard from him in a while, and it makes me nervous when I don't hear from him. I don't know what he's thinking.
I'm thinking you did great today. Other than that, the Metro has, let me start at the beginning. We had committed $130 million to the grade separation at Centinela from our regional program funds that are measuring to us and said we had a cost overrun on the Crenshaw LAX project and we want you to pay to pay for that cost overrun. The cost overrun is about $90 million, and Metro has asked us to use that SREP money, and Mayor Butts was instrumental in cutting a deal with them, and that deal basically says we will allow you to use our proportionate share of the SREP funds that are needed. LA City has about 2/3 of the share, and we have 1/3, contingent on them coming through with their 2/3, and also with the understanding that Metro will lead the effort to fully fund the grade separation at Centinela in exchange for us taking the money that we were going to use on that project. And we will, in effect, then put in about $35 million of the 130 that we have, leaving us $100 million for other projects for the grade SEP. That means that Metro will have to increase their share of the grade SEP to provide the balance of the funds. It's about a $200 million. So with that agreement, with that letter, there are a couple of clarifications that I'll have Jackie describe that she wants in our response to their letter. But we've come a long way from months ago when Metro was not even acknowledging this project was necessary, to today calling it a justifiable regional investment, part of the Crenshaw project. And I think we're almost to the point where it's a real project that can be built soon. Is that good?
It's always a real project. We always win, buddy. We don't ever equivocate. We don't say maybe. We always win. And I want to tell you this. I want to thank Steve and Mike. They have just done great work for the COG, working with me on the board. If there ever was a timing that worked out for us, the timing for us, meaning the South Bay, to have the chair of the board be the chair of the board, this was the year. It was worth a lot of money to the South Bay COG. And I want to thank you guys for the support you gave me 5 years ago to be elected with 48 hours notice on the board, and the support you've given me this year. And crisis or not, you know, we've had our meetings and we've fulfilled our agenda. And I just want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart for all the support that you've given me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me move on to just say that the letter is before you, and we had a discussion with Metro staff about the fact they were going to send us this letter for the meeting. In the letter, you will see they were requesting a response, and what it is basically what Steve said. What I asked them to include in the letter, but they didn't feel they had the time. And what I think we would, if you're making a motion to have the chair send a letter, what I'd like to include in the response is that when we first talked to Metro staff, they thought our proportional share was over 50%. And through Christian's eagle eye, calculate that it's 37%. So I think our response letter should include that we consider our proportionate share 37%, and the second thing, that's the first thing I think we should put in there. Second thing is that we should say that we consider this a not to exceed amount based on this $90 million, because we have no idea how many other cost overruns could happen. And this is the deal that we've made, is we will put in this much money for this 90 million. So it's a not to exceed amount. And then it would be contingent, as Steve said, on LA, City of LA, coming to the table with the rest of the money. If they won't pay, and Mayor Garcetti sort of objected to it today, if they won't pay, then we shouldn't have to pay, because then there's no proportionate share. And then the final thing is to thank Phil Washington, who sent this letter, for agreeing to do a funding strategy to complete the grade separation, which I think we have said all along is a project that should have been part of the project in the first place. So those are the things that should be in our response. Yep.
Jackie, he didn't send that letter in a vacuum.
I know.
All right, I want you to understand that. This was not the letter he was going to send.
That's what I heard.
Let's put it this way: there was more red ink on that draft than there was black.
No, this
Thanks
is
to Mr. Butts.
Yeah, Mayor Butts crafted a great letter, and so with those modifications, I think we should authorize the chair to send the response letter.
Okay, are there any questions related to the letter? And hopefully everybody saw it. There was an early version and then a second version that was sent out?
No,
Okay.
I'm just happy to say, Ralph Franklin, that Mr. Leahy is no longer the Chief Executive Officer of Metro. That made a significant difference when Philip Washington came on board and Mayor Butts being the chair for Metro. That was a win-win. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ralph. All right, so with that said, can I get a motion to send this letter with the minor adjustments that Jackie just laid out in request?
Ralph Franklin so moves.
Okay.
Boyles, second.
Okay, that was Drew Boyles with the second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? All right, that motion carries unanimously. Okay, Jackie, go ahead.
Next is a Metro board report, which would be Mayor Butts again, or Steve. One of you, like anything else that happened at Metro today we should know about.
Actually, you know, there were a lot of perfunctory, you know, bond information, legislative reports. The real big deal for us was the big deal about the fiber optic program. And like I said, I didn't even know the numbers were that big. I just remember 2 people not voting for it. And Jackie says there were 10. So that was overwhelming for something to be pulled. And I knew that a number of people had misgivings about it, but they yielded to what was right, and we're very proud of that. We had a lot of support.
Thank you. Okay.
I just want to bring, this is Steve. I want to bring attention to the page 43, is it? Yeah, 43. It has a letter to James Butts as chair of Metro regarding the next gen transit study recommendations. And in that study, we had 4 recommendations that we asked Metro to consider. If they were going to hold a bunch of public meetings and a public hearing, those were canceled due to COVID. They're also looking to implement some of the recommendations from this next gen study in their recovery and restoration program from the COVID once they get bus service back. We'll be working with them. If any of you have specific items that you would like Metro to consider, of 80 different changes they were looking to make, let me know. And we can get those communicated to them so that at least they're considered. They're not likely to implement more than 25% of service change in COVID, but they're going to do the rest over the next 18 months to 2 years. So it is important that we be tracking it and that they follow the policy guidelines that we put in our report.
This is Ralph Franklin. I want to commend that the board approved this letter tonight, because there's going to be briefings on the next gen bus plan revisions with webinars scheduled for May 5th, May 7th, May 11th, and May 12th. And then the Metro South Bay Service Council will hold our meetings webinar on Friday, May 8th. So any changes or comments you wish to make, I welcome to receive those. And I want to personally thank Steve Lance for providing me points on all the multiple changes that is going to occur with the bus lines in the South Bay, as well as introducing this letter to the Metro staff.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ralph. Okay, any questions, or can we move on to the next?
Yeah,
slide?
next.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
Next item is Metro Sector Council. The steering committee, although closed at the steering committee time, there was some thought that there were several elected officials that might be interested in still having their applications considered, having applications submitted. And so the deadline was changed to this afternoon at 5 o'clock. Before this afternoon at 5 o'clock, we did receive 2 additional applications, none of whom were from elected officials. This will be the first time that there are no elected officials on our Metro Service Council, but there are 12, and it would be my recommendation that we form a subcommittee that can interview these people on Zoom, and then maybe have, and then the steering committee can make the medium recommendation to bring to the next May board meeting. We need to do it in May because Metro needs to appoint in June so that they can be seated in July.
Okay, So with that said, if there is anybody who serves on the steering committee that would be willing to evaluate some of the candidates with me in the next couple weeks and then present a recording committee, I would appreciate that. Just email me separately, and then we will just do it virtually. Have probably one quick conversation about it, and then bring that recommendation to the steering committee at our next meeting.
So this is Ralph Franklin. I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I was led to believe at the steering committee meeting that we were going to reach out to elected officials of respective cities to see if they had interest, because I've been waiting to receive that doc. Like Eloy Morales Jr. expressed strong interest to want to serve on that committee.
Ralph, that email went out right after the steering committee meeting this month.
Okay, well, apparently I didn't see it.
Okay.
But I will serve, I'm welcome to serve.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Please, as I said, just email me. All right, Jackie, moving to...
This is the special item that we just added to the agenda on Metro budget request, and I'm going to ask Steve. It's in your supplemental packet. And Steve, are you gone? You're not, your video's not there. This has to do with a, Steve, can you do the Metro budget amendment? You're muted. This has to do with the fact that we submitted a budget amendment to Metro and
we got a last minute request from the city of Redondo Beach to add more money to their transit center project. And so this is a recommendation to add them to the plan. Metro said if we approved it today, the Metro staff said it, then they would take it under consideration for the program in May or June. Otherwise, we'd have next January year. Wasn't done earlier, but it's a request from Redondo Beach because their costs are higher than they expected. The bids came in higher than they expected, and they bid it twice, I believe.
Not be programmed for the coming year, it would be the following year, but we are getting short on funds, so this is to secure that money for Redondo Beach.
Correct.
By the time we $2.75 million, by the time we got to the end of fiscal year 21-22, we would be down to like $250,000. But then the following year, we have another shot of money coming in. So it's not that long of being out of money.
Correct, and this is a shovel-ready project that will break ground in July, most likely, and serve all the Muni buses as well as the future Green Line.
The request to be amended.
Okay, are there any questions? All right, I do not see any questions. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
I move to approve. Britt.
Okay, Britt with the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second from Cedric. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Are there any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone. All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to speak on the SCAG committees.
Yep, please go ahead.
Okay, at 5 o'clock, I received an email from the Orange County Council of Governments. Apparently, there is some consideration for the SCAG to be asking for a 90-day delay in the adoption of their regional transportation plan. This is a 4-year document, and it's on the SCAG agenda for the May 6th or 7th meeting, whatever that Thursday is. And this has been a real concern to us because it does establish the housing demand that will be used for RENA and everything else. And by adopting it on that Thursday, it's going to be a guideline for the future, and it really has no more relevance to today because of the virus and what's happened to building and to the economy and to the finances of cities and their ability to respond to this kind of a document. So I am sorry we just got this today. I guess I would ask that it's too the steering committee will come too late. So I would ask that if there's any possibility for the chair and to be authorized to look at this issue and see if we can send a letter to support a possible delay in the RTP to consider the impacts of the current situation.
Okay. Any questions for Jackie? Okay. Is there a motion to
Probably have to add an urgency motion actually, because it's not, well, it's on the agenda, I suppose, as SCAG.
Okay. And Jackie, just to be motion maker, you want authority for to send a letter as it relates to the RTP?
Yes, and a possible to consider the recent situation and plan will be for the future.
Okay. All right. So is everybody clear on what Jackie needs? Is there a motion to give her the authority to do that?
Boyles
Drew?
moved. So moved, Boyles.
Okay. Motion from Drew.
Co-second.
Okay. Kenny Cow. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? All right, thank you. Okay, Jackie, that carries unanimously. Okay, with that said, we're at oral. Typically, those have now been put into the consent calendar. So if anybody who submitted an item just wants to draw attention to something specifically, feel free to do that now. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, I just want, I'm going to put in a couple attachments into the chat. As you may have seen, I wouldn't hold it against you if you haven't an email from this afternoon yet, but the league did release the fiscal impact of COVID-19 on. So I'm going to include a couple of the handouts that we put out today in the chat, and then if you go back and look at my email, you should have all of those documents. And there is a webinar briefing tomorrow for our members on that, and then an action alert will be coming out from the league next week sometime, probably early in the week, just to really try to hit home that city budgets are really suffering as a result of times. And the bottom line from this report that we did was about $7 billion in general revenue impacts to city budgets around the state. And that is if the social distancing and stay-at-home orders by June 1st. So if we're in stay-at-home order past that point, it only will continue to build. So I just wanted to highlight that, and I'll put a few things into the chat.
Okay, and Jeff, if for some reason the meeting ends and people can't access us, to send that to David as well, and then we'll just make sure it gets forwarded out to everybody. You unmuted yourself. Did you have something?
No, thanks.
Okay. Otherwise, anybody else? Okay, well, with that said then, I think we are to upcoming events and announcements. So does anybody want to tell us about their social distancing activity for the next month?
No.
Okay. I might live stream a concert here from my office. I'm just saying. But other than that, okay, then folks, we will adjourn until the next board meeting, which will be May 28th, 2020. Let's assume it's virtual for now. And thank you all for being here tonight. Stay safe and stay in touch with Jackie with, as we said, anything that may help everybody else. Thank you.
Chris, one quick comment.
Bye, Brett.
When can we get a walkthrough of the office?
Which office?
Our new office.
New office?
Yes.
Well, I would assume, since we don't even have anybody there right now, that'll have to be once social distancing is lifted, unless David would like to prepare a little virtual walkthrough for us.
Hey, that's an option. I probably have to head in there tomorrow anyway, so I can. I'll snap a little video for everybody.
Thank you.
Don't mind the mess, though. We're still moving in, so.
Understood.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Well,